Okay, we're on the third part, talking about air tanks. And I've already gone through CO2 tanks and various high-pressure air tanks. I'm just showing you a couple of other air tanks that are in here that I have and explain some of the differences about them. This is Gorilla Air and their 6845 tank. I'm using the Myth G2 regulator on this. Okay? When you compare this to a standard 6845 tank, you can put them one next to the other like this, and you can see the Gorilla Air is going to be a little bit shorter in length, which some people really like. Actually, it's probably about 1.5 inches to 2 inches shorter in length, but it's a little bit bigger in diameter, which some people may not like. Part of this is because of the bottle. Part of this is because of the regulator on here. Okay. Now, they came out with the original Myth, and it was kind of like, if you saw the last video, the nitro duct tank. It had one burst disc, and it had one film nipple, and it had the gauge. And the burst disc was for the tank only, so it's about 7,500 psi. With this G2, they've done a little bit better job here. They've got two burst discs. They still happen, and this is their Pro burst disc. So unlike the others that stick out, this is more flush mounted. Okay, you can see it's a lot lower. Still does the same thing, but in this case, it's got it says high. This is a 7.5K burst disc, and now they've got a low or 1.8K burst disc. So now that's one of the nice things with this. They've gone on ahead and made it so that you can go on ahead and get the good, have the burst disc on there. You don't have to worry about your output pressure getting too high. There's been talk about with Gorilla Air that they had some kind of a built-in safety system. Your pressure got too high, and it would internally keep it from outputting too high of a pressure. Some people say it worked, some people say it didn't work, and there's been lots of arguments and everything. You get this one right here, the Gorilla Air Myth G2. You get the best of all worlds. You got your low pressure, the high pressure. It's still got the built-in safety. You get a low size, and when you screw this on your this air tank onto your gun, if you don't like where the fill nipple and the gauge are lining up, so in some cases when you got on your gun, it might go straight into your wrist, it might dig into your wrist or something. You can actually, when there's no air in here, you can actually unscrew this a little bit, and there's other videos out there. Unscrew this a little bit and change this as to where it's going to finally rest. Do that when you don't have any air in the tank. Do not do that when there's air in the tank. Before I do the last tank, I'll show you this one. This is a 22 cubic inch, 3,000 psi tank. Okay, it's much like the CO2 tank there, but it's longer. It holds high pressure air, so up to 3,000 pounds per square inch. Has the same type of regulator as the other ones. Are very similar to one of the other ones. As a matter of fact, if I'm correct, if I understand this, these regulators were made by the guys who make the Ninja regulators and the Pure Energy. So it's pretty much the same regulator. Getting the same high quality on that. Last tank I want to show you is this one. This is a MacDev tank with the MacDev regulator. The tank itself is 6845. Not such a big deal on that, but it's the regulator I want to show you. This is a completely self-contained regulator system. I have a rail right here that you can go on ahead and you just screw this onto the bottom of the grip of the paintball gun. Then you would slide this onto it, and then you'd tighten it down so that it didn't move back and forth. Okay? Why would you maybe want this? Because you're going to get a really small, light package. In the case of everything else, you have the ASA that you would have on the bottom, the thing you screw your air tank into. Then you screw your air tank onto that, and you're getting a really, I mean, it's still going to be only so big. In this case, this is right here is where your grip frame is. It's the smallest you're going to get. This is self-contained, so you've got right here the fill nipple, and then a gauge, and this is actually the output gauge. This is telling you how much pressure is going out of the regulator and into the gun. This is an actual adjustable regulator. So the other side, I've got a gauge and a macro line fitting. This gauge is telling us how much pressure is in the tank, and a macro line fitting goes directly onto your uses hose. It goes right to the gun. In the case with this one, and I have not noticed with this any kind of a burst disc, which has me kind of concerned. No burst disc. So if the pressure is too high, hopefully you adjust it this way and it won't, and this will actually be telling you the right pressure. Hopefully your pressure going in the tank won't be too high. But in the case with this one, you can adjust it just by taking this and screwing it. You turn it either way. You only do this when it's off. This is an off position, this lever to turn it on. Once you have it on your gun and you've got everything hooked up, you just push this up. You see it's moving. I'm not going to do it all the way. But you push it all the way up so it's sticking up like this, and then the air is running right through into your gun. Makes for a really small, light system, and it also makes it, if you choose to use it with different paintball guns, you can adjust your own pressure yourself really easy and not have to worry about it. So this is a bunch of the different tanks and a bunch of the different regulators and whatnot. But I do want to talk a little bit about hydrotesting. What is that? What does it entail? What does it mean? Why is it important? All that stuff. These air tanks are holding air pressure. The pressure you have around you is only, let's call it, just for the ease of this video, 1 pound per square inch. It's probably a little higher than that, but that means per square inch on your skin, the air is pushing at 1 pound. It's probably a little bit higher than that, but just for the sake of simplicity for this. With these, they're holding air at a higher pressure because all the stuff getting in, remember this is outputting 850 psi or even higher than that. The burst disc will pop at 3,000 psi. All these other tanks are all having 850 psi or 450 psi, which can be a little bit dangerous, and so they need to be able to be checked to make sure that they will hold the pressure. So typically every 5 years, in the case of this fiberglass, every 3 years, there's still some other tanks that are out there that are carbon fiber. Every 3 years, they need to go in and get hydro-tested. It is important you do this. Don't skimp on it. Don't go, oh, well, it's not a big deal or anything. Do it. Get them hydro-tested. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, but in the end, it's going to be a good thing. Okay? Now, there's some certain exemptions to this. It's called the 2x2 rule. And it's only for those tanks made of aluminum or steel, like these two right here, and they must be 2 feet or less in length and 2 inches or less in diameter. For instance, the whole reason for using this, and it's measured from right here where you can see this valve is meeting up with the bottle. It's the bottle itself. So it's measured from this bottle down near the bottom. The length on this one is going to be not quite 9.5 inches. I'm sure you probably can't see it, but this other one, the length on this is going to be less than 1 foot in length. In this case, the diameter is going to be just a bit over 2 inches. Okay? So every 5 years, this tank has to go in and get hydro tested. Must make sure that it actually can handle the pressures. This tank is just 2 inches. This, every 5 years, does not need to be hydro tested. This tank can just, as long as it'll hold the air, it's good. The other thing about hydro testing, these tanks, this one, and this one, and this one, indefinite, especially for hydro testing in case of this one and this one. As long as they pass hydro testing, you can use them forever. With the carbon fiber and the fiberglass tanks, they have a 15-year lifespan. That means, at a maximum, you can only use them for 15 years. Anything more than 15 years, they cannot be used. Now, if your tank is not in hydro, and all these tanks are, except for this one, but in this case, they all get, and the way to read it is usually you'll have something right here. Hopefully you can see this. It says 06, that's the month, 02 was the year. It's out of hydro, but I took it in, got it hydro tested, and there you go. This is when it was hydro tested, 0410 is when it was checked. Once they hit the 15-year mark, they cannot be used. If they're not in hydro and you take it to get filled, and the place that fills it doesn't check and just fills it anyway, they can get hit with a really big fine. Your tank won't blow up, but it's a big safety issue. So get your tanks hydro tested so you can be safe.